This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the only podcast that matters. It is the Party Loaded Show. We are chatting tonight on episode 192. So let's get things rolling. I'm going to introduce myself, Luke Ritalik, and also introduce Mr. Christian Paulson Brown. What's going on, my friend?
Not a lot. How are you this fine evening?
I'm pretty good. I'm a little deaf tonight because I went out and hit a concert last night with some extremely loud music and realised that I'm certainly not the age that my ears could repair themselves quickly anymore. So, yeah, that's if I start sort of like saying some weird stuff, it's just because I can't hear you. But I can always hear from Mr. Matt, the Game Dad Diet. Welcome, Matt. What's going on? Hello?
No, Matt.
I said hello. Did you not hear me, Luke?
No. I think yeah, that was that. Yeah, okay, cool.
Mr. Snippy Snip will come in there, I think.
No.
No, he was actually making a joke. That was hilarious.
Oh,
yeah. The timing was just exquisite, Matt. That was perfect. So anyway, moving on. Don't want to hear from you again. we have a guest tonight that we do want to hear from. So I'd like to welcome to the show for the first time, Jetha Chan. Welcome, Jetha. What's going on?
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
hello.
It's actually my first time doing one of these.
Hey.
Yeah, very, very happy to be here.
Cool. Well, first time doing a podcast with us is probably another whole level, like on top of that. So I would recommend just strapping yourself in, and you'll feel the G's pretty soon. So yeah.
All right.
You have fun. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's it. Matt, be gentle. Okay. Cool.
No, with Jetha, no.
No.
I know how.
We know how this goes. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in the theme of, getting some great insights and all things sort of games development and working in the industry and all that sort of stuff, we know that Jetha's done some really cool work, not only here in Australia, but also overseas. So we're gonna, given that you're potentially consenting that you're here already, we would like to pump you full of questions and get some really kind of interesting answers and get a bit of a window into the Jetha Chan world. Are you ready? Are you strapped in?
As I'll ever be.
Cool. That's exactly the answer we're after. Awesome. So, all right. So, in the theme of a show that is all about everything great in video games, Jetha, can you kick us off with maybe the abridged version of the Jetha Chan story? So, how did you get into the industry, and sort of what drew you to working in games?
Well, I guess I've always wanted to work in games. I mean, I think
Haven't we all?
yeah, games is it's one of those things that you kind of know you want to do it. But it just seemed like really kind of, it didn't really seem like the kind of thing that I could get to from Perth. I mean, everyone tells you go to university, you get a good job, and then question mark. But, it didn't really escape my notice that there really wasn't that much going on in terms of local studios. As I was going through university, I met Matt here.
My condolences. Yep.
I was about to say the same thing.
We know each other for a long time. Just around that time, the whole Interzone thing was happening. So for those of you who aren't aware of that particular story, someone came to Perth to start a game studio, and everything became, well, it was a rapidly evolving situation, evolved a little too rapidly for most people involved. And that sort of salted the earth for local game development. And I sort of found myself with a game development, with a computer science degree, and really nothing really to do with it besides make websites. I mean, it's lovely, but it's not games. So I worked with Matt on a bunch of stuff for a local science discovery center called SciTech. We did a bunch of interactive exhibits. It was a really interesting scenario where I wasn't originally on it. My friend and now colleague Dylan was the programmer on it. But what I remember is that I was asked to pinch hit for it turns out that the programmer project, like they've got to pull out. Like, can you do me a solid? Like my friend John, who was managing the project, asked me to come in and work with you, Matt, and Matt was in charge of the graphics and everything. It was an interesting thing there. It was like refurbishing an exhibit, just one exhibit, and like, you know, that's a decent amount of money, but it emerged that they had about 5 times the work, like just kind of like sitting there, like files ready to go, but they weren't really sure that we could do it all in time. So me and Matt just kind of looked at each other and we're like, how about you give us all of those files and you meet us here in 2 weeks?
Nice.
We worked so hard.
It was great.
It was amazing. We both got our close friendship became even closer, and we developed a mutual appreciation for the Britney Spears song "Work Bitch."
Oh, God.
I'm making notes now. This is coming back.
There were a lot of days where we were working on SciTech exhibits, and I was asleep on Jetha's couch. Like we did that like several times over to get those things. It was so worth it.
Yeah, it was so worth it. And the reason I'm sort of going deep on that is just like that sheer amount of like unexpected work enabled me to take a 5-week, let's see whether I can get a job in the Japanese games industry holiday. I had a friend who had worked at Interzone and had actually sort of moved to Japan, and they were a games designer at Q Games, so you know, home of the Pixel Junk series and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he suggested that I apply there, and I had been a big fan of their now sadly defunct podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I went there and I applied. And while I was there, that friend suggested that, hey, there's this other company there called Vitae. Why don't you apply for Vitae? And I applied at Vitae as well. And I mean, it was really interesting meeting all of these people, and I had a really good feeling about that interview with Vitae. But so I was out with everyone at like a game bar and just thinking, yeah, I've got this in the bag. And then this guy walks in and I'm just like, fuck, I'll just see myself out. Like, I don't know if you've ever like felt this way about jobs or dating or something, or just like it feels great, and then you just see someone just that's like you in every way but better. The door.
Yeah,
and it's just like I can't deal. But like, so I was feeling good about myself because I had recently passed the highest level of the Japanese language proficiency test, and I had my computer science degree, and I had like, you know, if not games, but certainly interactive exhibits, and like I was feeling pretty strong, like, you know, and these people, you know, it's like, yeah, programmer, he speaks Japanese, and like this is a winner. And this guy comes in, and not only does he have his computer science degree, not only does he have his level 1 highest level of the Japanese language proficiency test, but he had actually been the lead programmer on Dive Kick for PS3.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to finish my drink and leave.
So how protected were his kneecaps at that point?
Do a Tonya Harding on him?
Yeah.
I'm you can't see me because this is voice only, but I'm actually very tall. They're further away from me than for other people. This is what I'm trying to say there. But he was a perfectly lovely guy. I just kind of hated his guts for a little while. I got over it.
Just quickly, your bilingualism with Japanese, is that something that you learnt like growing up? Like, were you in a bilingual household, or did you study it later?
I studied it later. I mean, we're skipping over the part where I'm just like a massive fucking weeb.
I'm the sort of representative weeb on the podcast, so we'll get along fine.
Yeah,
right. So I'm skipping over. I mean, it's the abridged version. I'm already like rambling a bit, but like went to university for computer science, and sort of had immediate crisis of confidence. It's like, I mean, stop me if this sounds familiar, but like it's the whole. Am I doing this because I like to do it and I want to do it for the rest of my life, or am I doing it because it's something that I'm good at?
Yeah.
And I had no answers. So what I did is I ended up having to defer my first semester, had to write a impassioned letter to the people who were administering the HEX system at the time, being all like, can you please like not add this to my pile of debt, soon to be large pile of debt, which they very graciously agreed to not do that. And then I just sort of descended into a spiral of LAN parties and getting fat. It was glorious. I mean, one thing they never tell you about getting fat, like, people always gloss over how much fun getting fat is.
It's like doing drugs, right? People do them because they feel good. They haven't had a side effect.
Yeah.
Food is the most addictive drug on the fucking planet. You're not wrong.
Yeah. Like, you haven't lived until you've, like, eaten, like, I don't know, like a can of lychees and syrup, and then drunk the syrup.
Oh god. And you haven't lived long afterwards either.
I mean, I forgot who said it, but do you live longer, or does it just feel longer?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, 18 months after that, I didn't really have any, like, I was no closer to a answer as to what I wanted to do with my life, and I was like, well, you know what, Japan is the spiritual center of the spiritual, like, if you're of our generation, I'm making some assumptions about you guys,
It's the Mecca,
right? Like, if you are of a certain generation, like if you're like our parents' generation, then maybe like Space Invaders and Pac-Man, like that, like and technically, historically, the birthplace of games is America, right? So that's where Pong and Tennis for Two and all that comes from. But after the crash of 1983, like, you know, Japanese manufacturing is ascendant. You've got things like Famicom, you've got Super Famicom.
Yeah.
But you know, like, you know, for you know, so many of us, like, you know, Japan equals Nintendo equals game.
Yeah, equals childhood in so many different ways. Yeah,
totally.
But it was weird because, like, growing up playing so many Japanese games, I didn't even realize at the time that they were Japanese. Like, when I was a kid,
Oh, really?
And it's only later in life that I look back and I'm like, these are all made in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is amazing because, like, you know, there's a bunch of Japanese games that would have come out around, you know, 2010 when you were going through that childhood. So, yeah.
Shut up.
Jesus
He
Christ.
teases me for being young. But
Like, how young are we talking? Like,
I'm 32. I'm not a spring chicken.
oh, thank God.
No.
Oh, actually, you're in good company. I'm 32.
Oh, perfect.
All right, this is where it all turns around on me. So let's move on.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So to cut that particular tangent short, I did a full Bachelor of Arts studying Japanese.
Mm-hmm. So actually, sort of making it over there and sort of, I mean, I'm assuming that the interview sort of portion of the story worked out okay, even after the other candidate. You must have worked your way into actually working at some point of that
DJ,
story.
was it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. I mean, like, at this point, it's still 2 years before I entered the industry.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Like, so I had applied at Q Games, didn't hear anything. I applied at Vitae, heard back almost immediately, had the interview, felt very good about it until I met this guy. And everything was going all right. But it just didn't really feel like I was going to be getting the job out of that 5 weeks. I just spent a shit ton of money. And I'm feeling super sorry for myself. And then this girl I had met a few years ago, like, she was really hot. Like, I'm not going to use any names, but she was really hot. And then for whatever reason, she was kind of into me, which I didn't really understand, but also I wasn't really going to look too much into. But we'd reconnected, and, like, she was like, yeah, let's have dinner. Like, how does December 26th sound? Sounds really good. Okay, I've got nothing to do in Japan over Christmas. I mean, this seems like a good thing. And then, of course, Q Games gets back to me, and they're like, you're going to need to put aside a full week to do this test.
Huh.
There's like 11 questions. It's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, I mean, these things do technically have right answers, but, like, they really kind of want to see you stunt. Like go as hard as you can, leave it all out on the field in a 7-day period.
Right.
And that 7-day period just happened to overlap with my date.
Oh, okay.
And so
Like,
you chose to follow your heart, right? And then
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that's what I was following.
So to just go into the conspiracy theory sort of angle here, are you sure they didn't set you up with this lady just to add an extra layer to the test? Yeah.
I mean, if I'm ever retelling this story, I mean, maybe that's what I'll choose to believe.
Yeah.
But seriously, like, it was I heard about this like basically Christmas Eve, you know, like you can, like, someone tells you, like, out of the blue, yeah, you need to spend from Christmas Eve all the way through to, like, New Year's Day doing this test. And it's like, It's the worst. So that didn't really go as well. I mean, it was a really interesting test, and I'd like to think I'd put as good of a foot forward as I could have, but didn't really seem like the right confluence.
That's a bizarre hiring story. That's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I went back to Australia because I mean they had hired Vitae had hired the other guy, and they were like, you know what, we only have the budget for one guy right now. Look, we're really sorry. We really like you, but maybe next time. And so I'm back in Perth, and I'm feeling really, really sorry for myself, just being like, oh fuck, like I don't have a job, I've got money, but I'm just like looking at Seek, the whole the job thing on my phone, and it's just like, oh, I see this place is hiring. Oh, they're paying a decent amount, and okay. So yeah, it was, and I sort of fell into that job. I'm doing myself a disservice now, but I mean, yeah, it was very lucky for me to just basically walk into that job within about 2 weeks, and I was there for about over a year. It got to about the 18-month mark, and then I started being like, oh no, I have all this Japanese training, but this job doesn't use it. Oh no. And I really wanted to take a working holiday to Japan, because I don't know if you're familiar with working holidays, but there's an agreement between Australia and Japan. Just if it's before you turn 30, you can go for 12 months and work and holiday and work.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
It's an interesting thing. I would really recommend it if you've got the chance. And I worked things out with my boss, being like, look, I'm Japan. I've got the degree. I've got everything. I'd been there for 12 months studying, but I'd never worked there before. I kind of wanted to know what's working there going to be like, because I'm sure but studying in a place and visiting a place as a tourist and actually living and working somewhere is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what it would be like. So I worked things out with my boss, and he was like, yeah, you know what? You can go. I'm going to let you work remotely, but I'm going to adjust your salary downwards based on the cost of living, good living difference. And I'm like, are you serious? But okay, I'll take it.
It's weird.
It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. I mean, it was. I was very thankful that he let me do that. So I flew to Japan, and on the first night, there's this indie games festival called Bit Summit that runs every year in Kyoto. It's sort of like a celebration of Japanese games. And it's in later years, so recently. It's partnered with Indie Mega Booth, which of course is the big sort of roadshow that travels from event to event, showing indie games here and there, just like the cream of the crop.
Yep.
So there's typically a pre-show mixer, and I happened to arrive the night before Bit Summit, the night where Vitae was doing a really, really big industry mixer. I think they completely ignored the fire code in that building. It was it's a giant, imagine 3 university classrooms next to each other. Just with no walls between them, right? And then everyone, and there's so many people in there, you barely have elbow room. And there's free drinks, and there's
so like a basketball court sort of size, people just jammed in.
Maybe about a half kind of situation.
Okay.
On the 10th floor of this office building. And I'm there, and I'm meeting all these new people. So many people are there. The 8-4 guys are there, the big local company. Shuhei Yoshida was there. He's always in Bit Summit. And I was playing Towerfall with a bunch of people, and then suddenly Giles, who's the top guy at Vitae, he's a big shot programmer. We'll go into Giles later, but so he comes up to me, and he's with the beer in his hand, and he's pretty drunk, and he's like, I forgot how tall you are, because he had interviewed me 2 years before that. And I'm like, yeah, I get that a lot. And then he takes a step from his beer, and he's like, how do you feel about a job? And I'm like, I just got here. I had literally just told my boss in Australia, yeah, totally. I'll see you. I'll be online for the meeting on Monday. And Giles is here on the Friday night offering me a job.
Holy shit. So you've gone literally from the most bizarre kind of week-long intensive interview process, test thing ever, to just a random job offer at a drunken industry mixer.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're skipping over the 2 years of working in web stuff in Perth, but honestly, no one wants to hear. So you know, it's just like completely surreal to me, and I'm just like, he's pretty drunk. This probably doesn't mean anything. So I go to Bit Summit the next day, and it's like super hot. Take my bike there and like try out all these games. It's amazing. It's like yeah, it's really good. It's just I love Bit Summit. If you ever get the chance, please go. And so I'm there at the Vitae booth, and I'm trying out this new game, experimental game that they've got going called Fractures. And it's really cool. It's this kind of like Ghibli-esque kind of like, it's like dimensions like layered on top of each other, and you've got this character that can sort of like manipulate portals. It was really interesting.
Okay.
So I'm looking at all of that and playing it. It seems really cool. And then suddenly Giles is there again, and I'm like, okay. And I'm expecting him to say like, look, you can't take what I say when I'm drunk. Like seriously, you just, you know. He's like, did we talk about a job? And I'm like, expecting him to be like, let's pretend I didn't say that. And I'm like, yeah, you did. And then he's like, all right, so can you come in at some point this week? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I go in, and then we chew the fat a little bit, me and his lead programmer, and then the lead programmer and Giles look at each other, and then there's like some unspoken communication there, and then it's like, well, when can you start? And I'm like, what? So I don't know if you know, like, I don't know if anyone listening has like a computer science background or anything, but typically there's a test. Typically, like there's a whiteboard or some shit, or like, can you do a thing for us? And I'm like, I thought there would be a test. And then he's like, well, I got your scores from 2 years ago. They were pretty good. So, I mean, when can you start? And I'm like, I'll get back to you on that. So I ended up having to tell my boss in Australia, I don't want to leave you in the lurch. But this thing just kind of happened like a thunderbolt out of the blue. So I'm going to give you like a month and a half, and then I'm going to switch over to Vitae. And then I did.
Nice.
And then that was my entry into the games industry. I'm sorry, like you asked for the abridged version. I feel like I gave you the whole like fucking 16 volume.
Those are some interesting bridges, though. There was some
really interesting like twists along the way, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So that was how I got in.
Nice. And I get the impression that you were in Japan sort of working in that capacity for at least a couple of years. So what kind of stuff did you sort of get to accomplish while you were in that role?
Yeah. So I was there for about just over 4 years. So to begin with, so Vitae, the game that we were working on, when it was released, it was called Tank Troopers. So Vitae was a company that, well, it was a place at the time. It was a place that so Nintendo would assign us a producer, and like he would have like the full like sort of game design and other Nintendo assets to use, other Nintendo people to use as well, and then we would simply do the implementation. And that's sort of Tank Troopers. So like they had this idea for a tank action game, multiplayer tank action game, 3DS, and they were like, well, it's got to be fun. There was a pivot later into more of a cutesy kind of thing, more of an accessible kind. And yeah, we shipped the title. It was a proprietary engine because the 3DS is a particularly weak piece of hardware. And yeah, we shipped that, and everything seemed good. Everyone was like super happy with us. Like it was like the smoothest debug period that they had ever seen, and the performance was particularly good. So I don't know if you guys have 3DSs or anything, but like,
yep.
So we were very proud that we had a proprietary engine that let us like hit 30 FPS solid, like lots of explosions, lots of tank, like even on the old 3DS. Yeah, we were super proud of it, and everyone at Nintendo was very happy. And then this is all around the time when Iwata-san died, so CEO of Nintendo, was replaced by this guy who his priorities for the company are different. So there's a sort of a rationalization going on to Nintendo, like the person that we had worked with / under, like their star was no longer as ascendant perhaps as it used to be, and we had that relationship sort of came to an end, much as a surprise to everyone involved.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very interesting way to get acquainted with the Japanese unemployment system.
Okay.
It's an interesting system, like, and in order to get it, you have to be looking. There's like activities. There's an quota of activities you have to do every month. So you have to either use their database to apply for new jobs, or like go to a seminar or something that they're holding, and then you get your money. And then if you can find a new job within I want to say within 30 days of losing your first one, like there's a bonus paid out to you, and it's pretty big.
Okay.
So it's interesting. So everyone was like going their own separate ways, and then the entire like situation at that time was like there's like nothing quite so bad as like sort of like seeing a situation unfold and thinking to yourself, yeah, I probably could have stopped this. Like maybe we could have done this, and this. But you're not the person to make those calls. You're a cog in the machine. And I was getting more and more frustrated. And like our project manager at the time was like personally, he's a really nice guy, and like this is going to be like the most like backhanded compliment ever. But luckily, his English ain't too good. But yeah, like he's the kind of person like. So the games industry is very unstable, and his games industry reflexes, in terms of like landing his next job, were amazing.
Okay. So he'd been through that a few times and knew how to.
Yeah. So like he lined up a new job for him, and he was safe, but like it didn't really seem like. I personally wish that he had done more to try and right the ship instead of only looking out for himself.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a nice guy. I mean, I can't really begrudge him. I mean, like anyway.
Yeah.
So I went through all of that, and I was like, if only I had been like, as I had all these ideas, ways we sort of all work together as a team to right the ship and stuff. It didn't really, and you know, the thing I would keep hearing is just that, come on, Jetha, like if you could do that, then you would be doing it. Okay, I guess I got to start doing this at some point.
Yeah.
So Giles actually had a second company called Vitae Backroom, which was a sort of like experimental VR. So basically, Nintendo would pay us a whole bunch, and then like making games for them, like Tank Troopers, of course, Steel Diver series, and you know he would sort of carve out a bit of that to work on games that the company would own, so that company was doing mostly VR, mostly experimental VR stuff, and Giles, for whatever reason, it still astounds me to this day. But like while everyone else was like trying their best to like find places to land in Kyoto and around Japan, he asked me to join Vitae Backroom as a project manager. Shit, okay, I'll do that. and that was really interesting. I mean, it was a young company. Like a lot of people there, like it was their first game job. The exception of the programmer. He was a big veteran, like over 12-year veteran.
Yeah.
He had a really great illustrator and 3D modeler and animator, and a really great audio guy, but he was like starting a second career after being really involved in HR in Japan. So it was a really kind of, you had that youthful energy, like kind of like anything's possible kind of energy, which honestly I really needed after the way things ended.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a perfect situation for yourself, actually having like a running history with him as well, being a known quantity with an environment where there's a lot of new sort of people to the industry kind of working for the first time, and you would fit very naturally into a supervisory role for people in that position. So timing, again.
Totally. And the thing is that a lot of those people, they didn't speak Japanese, with the exception of the audio guy, and he was the other project manager at the time. But yeah, and because I knew Japanese, because I could program, and because it seemed like I wasn't entirely shitty at the project management thing. That's the position I was put into, and it was touch and go for a while there. We did a few small contracts for around Kyoto for domestic VR arcade sort of scene. We did a sort of a House of the Dead thing, but themed around like Japanese yokai. We did a sort of a puzzle, an escape room kind of situation.
Yeah. So like using physical assets in a real world environment kind of thing, or?
Oh, no, this is all VR.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Like HTC Vive and high-powered PCs. They're like, here's this thing. It was a really interesting sort of thing. Like, I mean, I don't know how into game development you guys are, but like you read books or you read articles, and like they're like, oh, well, there's going to be like a 50-page game design document, and everything's going to be like super well scoped, and there's going to be a well defined budget and all other shit. And like they gave us like when they said they wanted a game made, they would give us like a 6 or 7 slide PowerPoint presentation. Not like a good one either. Just like this is vaguely what the game should be. And like the budget, I think was enough for like 4 people for 2 months per game.
Right.
And it was a really accelerated schedule.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like game jam. You just gotta. Though I don't really know where you can play those now.
Yeah.
I get the impression with a lot of those kind of grassroots VR projects around the time that VR was kind of getting set to take off, and everyone was hoping it was going to set the world on fire. That being able to pivot quickly with some of those projects and actually take those proof of concepts to market as rapidly as possible to sort of take advantage of that rising sort of star. It was kind of a big thing.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. Like everyone. This is sort of before the of disappointment.
Yeah.
So it's that, I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but like whenever there's a new technology, like everyone's super interested until reality, and that's the valley of disappointment. And it takes a little while for it to come out of that valley when the technology is considered mature. So that was before the plunge, and everyone was like super excited, like Vive, wow, it's really cool. Oh, Oculus, wow, really cool. But people can't afford those. I mean, I guess for the listeners' benefit, so a Vive is like at the time it costs like something like $1,000 for a full setup, and maybe more. And you needed like a $3,500 computer to run it.
Yeah, and the space to actually have the poles sort of set up in your room and that kind of thing too. Yeah.
Yep. You needed to set aside like pretty much a whole room, and like I don't know if you know what the apartment housing situation is in Japan.
Oh yeah, that's the thing that fascinates me about VR in Japan. You're just like, how on earth are most people going to find the room to have that sort of stuff?
You ain't got it. You ain't got it. Barely anyone has a computer, let alone a gaming computer, let alone a VR headset. Like it's just a whole different thing. So yeah, we sort of like capitalized on the gold rush. Hey, we can make VR. You want to make VR? Okay, we'll make VR.
That makes sense. So you obviously sort of worked your way back over to Australia eventually, and kind of being back here now working in another role with another company. Are you kind of able to draw some observed comparisons between the working cultures in game studios, sort of Australia versus Japan, that kind of stand out and wouldn't maybe be obvious to most people? What do you think?
Totally. Yeah. So the first thing my work in Japan went through various phases of various criticality, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I mean, before I went there, I was working for a web company in West Perth. And it's a fairly typical, like, everyone gets there around, like, if you work a 9 to 5, like, typically you actually get there at, like, 8 or 8:30, and then, like, you leave around 5:30.
Yeah.
That's what we all know here in the West. It's great. You get to spend time with your kids, or spend time making kids. I don't know, as the case may be. Or, but in Japan, so I started working for Vitae, and almost immediately, it's like a culture clash for me, because they're like, most people don't come in until 10.
Oh, really? I would have assumed the opposite. Actually, that's interesting.
And I'm like, okay. So I come in 10ish. And then around 5:30, I start getting a bit antsy. I mean, I'm looking around and everyone's still working. And I'm like, what's going on here? And so it turns out that you don't really get to leave until around 7 or 7:30.
Right.
And I mean, oh wow, that was something to learn. It's really dumb though, because like you get out of work and you're tired, and like there's not really anything to do.
And that's if there's no nomikai as well.
That's it exactly. So nomikai is the Japanese word for just a drink up. Yeah, so you end up just kind of either going out in the town, or there's not really much to do. Like work dominates life, and of course that's like that 10 to 7 kind of situation. That's when it's normal. Like what during crunch, like you're talking a lot longer. Like luckily we had a really smooth debug on Tech Troopers. Yeah, we didn't really have to do that much. But that Vitae back rib, there were some times like I'm surprised I'm conscious right now.
Yeah. Was it ever sort of to the point with those, intense periods where you're just working on shipping something and all else sort of be damned? Were people kind of sleeping in the office and not actually going home at all? Did it ever get that serious? Or
Okay, so one thing I'm proud of VT, I was able to insulate my team from a lot of that. A lot of because we had team members with young families and stuff. You don't want to take people away.
I have heard from other like foreigners who've worked in Japan that sometimes like the foreign people in the office are cut a little more slack and they're not sort of expected to be held up to the same standards as the Japanese. Did you find that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a thing that we had because our management was entirely foreign ourselves. But you'll run into that. You're going to run into that when you deal with when you're dealing with clients. Their expectation, like the expectation with a foreigner, is that not only do you not speak the language properly, but you don't understand the culture. Like it's not like a Orientalist, like you have no honor, but almost like kind of like this foreign person doesn't understand the meaning of commitment, the meaning of responsibility, like the true meaning of like I can't rely on this person to pull out all the stops if it means maintaining the relationship. And for better or for worse, my Japanese was just good enough that I couldn't get away with that. So I would be getting it from the client being like, Jetha, you understand that you have to do all of this, like we're counting on you, like, and then I'd be like, ha. And then I'd go back and talk to my foreign team, and they're like, Jetha, I don't understand. Like, just tell them you won't do it. Like, and I'm like, no, my Japanese isn't bad enough that I can get away with that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, all right. When you actually do have some downtime, some leisure time to get into actually playing games and not in the dev side of things, Jetha, what do you like to play? So, what have you been playing lately? Let's pivot into that. Yeah.
Lately, I've been playing a lot of Free Houses.
Oh,
yeah.
Convenience.
It's a really good game for the gym. If you're doing the gym, just take your Fire Emblem there. Good for the exercise bike. Because like you're there and like got the burn in your legs and your ass is hurting, and like you can't really get off the bike until the battle's over, right?
So all right, so this is perfect. You heard it here first. Like Fire Emblem Three Houses, the perfect game for when your ass is hurting. That's right.
I mean,
put it on the box right now.
Yeah. I mean, it'll either make so much worse.
Yeah.
Which house did you choose, Jetha?
To begin with, I chose Black Eagles, which I've been getting a lot of shit from some of my friends.
That's like the most common one.
Well, they're like, oh, an imperialist. Oh, why'd you pick the fascist faction? They're not fascist. They're just expansionist and imperialist. It's weird.
So I know that Matt, you finally weakened and picked this up during the week as well. So
yes,
have you actually played it yet, or are you kind of just hoarding?
Oh. No. I've been playing it. Like I've actually been playing it a fair amount. And I don't want to talk about it too much just yet because I feel like I'm still formulating opinions. But the one thing I will say is that the hardest part of the game is tea time.
Is it though?
Once you know the characters, it gets a lot easier.
Compared to combat, I've gotten tea time wrong a lot more.
You know what the secret is to good tea time, right, Matt? Is to give them their favorite tea. Then you only need to get 2 out of the 3 responses for a perfect tea time.
I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. That's good advice.
Look up the wiki for every character has a favorite tea, and then that makes it much easier.
Okay.
I'm feeling like such an outsider right now.
But yeah, like I'm going to talk more about Fire Emblem probably like next episode or the episode after. It depends on how far I get in another game I picked up yesterday. But the thing I wanted to actually talk about more was a game I picked up earlier this week. Well, actually, no, late last week. Called Dicey Dungeons, which I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it.
I've been hearing heaps about this game. So it seems like another kind of builder battler similar to what was the one we spoke about last year? The tower-based one.
Oh, yeah, I know the one you're talking about, and I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. God damn it, that's going to haunt me.
You'll eventually figure it out. Either way,
Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire. Yeah.
Slay the Spider. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dicey Dungeons is a deck building dice-based roguelike, which sounds ridiculous, but it is totally that thing, and I love it. It is a ton of fun. Christian and Adrian would both absolutely love this for the roguelike component. Because every single playthrough, like, you'll get different pieces of gear, and it kind of changes the way you build your character.
I love me a deck building game as well.
Yeah. But like on the surface, it does not look like a deck builder.
So hang on. I'm a little confused here because obviously dice are involved, which makes me wonder what the point of cards is. So are you building pools of dice, or are you building decks of cards that you interact with using dice? Is that
you interact with cards using dice?
Okay.
So basically, the whole idea is that you build a deck of abilities that you can play, but those abilities require you have certain dice roll to be able to play, for example. Right. So you might have a card that's like, it will only trigger if you have an evenly numbered dice available in your amount of dice that you currently have.
Gotcha.
So that kind of limits what abilities that you can trigger off, and then you can upgrade those cards to make it so that you could get an upgrade that basically says this card no longer needs an even dice, it can use any dice. And so you kind of build a deck out using your cards, and basically just the luck side is basically rolling the dice, and the card side is building a character, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So there's all these different classes. There's 6 different classes that you can play as, and each one has their own little quirks. And there's quite a lot of content in the game in terms of like gameplay. Like, each different character has their own campaign that's like 6 chapters long.
Oh, how many characters are there?
There's 6 characters.
Right. Of course, 6 on a dice. That it makes total sense. Yeah.
All the characters are dice.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah. So, a whole bunch of content there, and then you also have weird, random like game modes that just sound super interesting and cool. Like hard modes and that sort of thing. Really interesting. But yeah, no, I've been enjoying it so much. Especially the soundtrack is fucking banging. Like, it's really, really good. I bought the game. I started playing it. I couldn't get the soundtrack out of my head, so I had to buy the soundtrack as well.
Oh, wow.
So that I could listen to it. Because it's just really good. Like chiptune and it, yeah, fantastic.
Oh,
but
that's great.
The game, if you want something to play in your free time, you should totally pick it up. This is the sort of thing where if it's not out on Switch yet, it should be, because I would play the shit out of this on my Switch. Yeah, really good. You should pick it up, Christian.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Free time, Matt. You're not going to know what that is anymore after the next week or two. I know what you've got on your plate.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Well, speaking of plates, Christian, what's on yours? What have you been looking at?
Well, I did polish off 3 houses during the week, doing my Blue Lions run. And yeah, the only thing I'll add to my comments from previous episodes is that I feel like I was so into the characters and so into the world building, and I feel like the split paths that you like, the different houses that you choose between, it's both the game's greatest strength and one of its greatest weaknesses in a sense. Because you are only seeing part of the story from like a certain house's perspective. There were like really interesting like plot leads and hints at different things happening in the world that weren't explored in my route. And I know that it's like because I can go play the other routes and discover it that way. But when I put like 70 hours into the game, it ended up feeling a little bit like loose ends and like a bit unsatisfying that I didn't get to sort of uncover all of the secrets that the game had to offer in 70 hours because I had to go down one route. So and that is also part of what makes the game so good. But it just felt a little like I had to do a lot of wiki diving afterwards to fully understand the story, because there was some stuff where I was like, hang on, I still don't understand like who that character was or what their motivation was. And I don't know if they could have done that in every route, but yeah, that was the feeling I was left with.
Going back to our conversations about alternate endings, that almost feels like, to me, like the same thing as when you will complete a game once, you know that it's got alternate endings, and instead of playing it through multiple times to get all that extra material, you just watch it somewhere on like
that's
YouTube.
basically what I did. Yeah. But the game that I wanted to talk more about this week is Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight.
The most Christian game that ever fucking existed.
Pretty much, yeah. So I picked it up a couple of months ago, but it had been just sitting on my to play list because I loved Persona 4 Dancing All Night. I platinumed that game. Fucking loved it. But Persona 5, like, even though the soundtrack is awesome, it had never struck me as well suited to a dancing game than Persona 4 was, just because of the tone of the game, and the reviews were a bit more middling for Dancing in Starlight. And sure enough, like it does feel like a lesser game than Persona 4 than Dancing All Night. Like, there's no sort of story mode to the game. I have read that there was one planned, but it was cut in development, and instead you're left with a few like support conversations. But that's it really. There's just the like quick play, basically just dancing and some light support convos. The actual songs themselves, they've remixed the soundtrack in a not great way. A lot of them are just not good versions of the music from the game. Whereas like Persona 4, the soundtrack was banging. Like the dancing soundtrack was still like lit. It was awesome. But so yeah, like it just feels like there's not much meat on the bones of the game, and the music isn't as amazing, which is, you know, the key thing that you want in a dancing game. I still had some fun with it, but I'm already finished with it after a couple of days, and it's nowhere near as good as Persona 4. It feels a bit more rushed out.
Yeah, fair enough. So do you think you'll still complete it though, and get through it?
There's not that much to complete. Like, I unlocked all the songs. There's only about maybe 15 tracks in the game. You start with 5, and then you pretty quickly unlock all the rest of the songs. And then because there's no story mode, all you're left with is playing the songs on harder difficulties,
right?
Which unlocks more costumes, unlocks more like custom modifiers, and there may be 1 or 2 hidden tracks buried in, like, if you do every song on hard, maybe it unlocks like 1 more bonus track, something like that. At least that's what Persona 4 had.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. There's not enough there to motivate me to like go all the way like I did with the Persona 4 version. If all it would take is the music to be much better. If the music was much better, then I would probably platinum it again. But
yeah, fair enough. Nice. Well,
yeah. That's me.
I've been attempting to tear myself away from the usual suspects this week, so I've still been sinking tons of time into No Man's Sky, still really enjoying that. And I'm getting the feeling that my attempts to drag Matt back in are going to be met with a lot of resistance for the next few weeks.
No, probably not. Like, if you let me know you're playing, I'll hop on.
All right, cool. I'll hold you to that because, I think there's a lot of stuff still yet to uncover. And we've got a nice little group of locals sort of involved in exploring that together, and that's been a lot of fun to bounce things off each other. Destiny 2's still been good. Managed to drag Adrian back into the game, which was a thing this week. So, and he appears to have absolutely devoured it. Like, every single time I look at my Battle.net client, he's playing the fucking thing. So he must be enjoying himself. Well, I'm curious to sort of hear his thoughts when he's back on next week. But that's been good fun. So, but the game that I want to chat about this week that I've actually been playing a bit of is the new title by Sam Barlow called Telling Lies. Have you guys heard about this thing?
Yeah. So it's the new one from the Her Story developer.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I want to play this.
Yeah. Okay. So Her Story was a game that we actually played way back in the day on the show, like over Christmas. Myself and Ollie and Imogen and Jam, who obviously were sort of the original sort of cast of hosts on Party Loaded. We actually got together as a point one Christmas sort of period, and all in Imogen's apartment actually played this game together as like a conversational experience and like a, use teamwork to kind of puzzle it out. Because the way this game plays, and I'm going to talk about Her Story first because I think it's kind of important to understand how Telling Lies works. So Her Story is a game about, it's like a found footage kind of analysis game. So you go in, you don't quite know who you are, you don't quite know what you're doing, but you've got a whole bunch of police interviews that you can watch the videotape of and sort of get snippets of the story out of it by watching them out of order. And the reason why you watch them out of order is because you can only sort of search for keywords in a database of all of this videotape footage and locate the videos you're after by searching for these keywords. And the words you will get from watching videos and thinking of things to search for. So you might hear like a mention of like an incident that happened or a person's name or something that's mentioned in a video. And then you think to yourself, okay, cool, I'm going to do a search on that to see if I can turn up more footage on that particular theme and learn more about the story. So what this means is that like it's very much a puzzle game where you're kind of trying to puzzle out like what to find and what to sort of seek in terms of information. And the order in which you watch all of the content for, my playthrough might be totally different to you guys. Like our experience with the game would be like vastly different just based on which threads we choose to follow in which sequence. And you sort of ultimately end up going down a different rabbit hole each time. Now, Her Story was a fantastic game. I enjoyed the hell out of it. There's some really cool sort of subplot stuff going on that you're constantly questioning what's going on. The acting and the video sort of quality was great. And, that was ultimately a story revolving around police interviews. It was just this one particular setting where all the footage was captured. It was pretty much just one sort of interview subject, or was it? Because you actually, get these themes later on of, potential sort of, twins or multiple personalities with the person that's actually in all of the footage, and you're starting to wonder if it's actually more than one person or not, which is a really cool twist of the game, which I won't spoil for you. But anyway, that's Her Story. Now, Telling Lies is the same sort of thing. So you basically come in as a character named, I'm pretty sure it was Karen. And Karen has somehow gotten hold of a bunch of NSA footage, which has been taken from various different recording devices. Like some of it is webcams, some of it is sort of handy cams that have been used in different environments. Some of it is obviously, security cams sort of mounted in different rooms. And you are basically trying to piece together information from all of this footage, from all of these different people interacting, but it's kind of loosely based on 4 core characters, and a lot of the scenes and the information that you're sort of absorbing revolves around these 4. These 4 characters have different kind of setups and backgrounds. Like one of them's a nurse, one of them's actually like a sexy webcam kind of operator. Who does that kind of, footage, and you're obviously seeing a lot of, her product as part of the tapes that you're watching. But you kind of come in and...
what was the name of this game again?
It's called Telling Lies. So,
sure, thanks. Okay.
Yeah, so it's only just come out like the last couple of weeks too, so very, very recent. I think it's about $30 Australian, roughly. So, I'll get onto what I like about this game, but I'll say up front, it's definitely worth the price. So... and you start off, the whole mechanic with this game, very similar to Her Story, is you search for videos using keywords that you pick up from watching videos. But the big differences with this one is, number one, you've actually got a clock running. You've got time pressure with the videos that you're actually watching, and you need to try and scrub through and find as much stuff as you can, as quickly as you can, because you're aware that you only have access to this content for a certain amount of time. Now, I won't spoil the time mechanic too much, because I think you probably should play the game to kind of work out how that pressure kind of operates. But it gives you this real sense of urgency, which is really cool. Like, I think that's a nice twist to it. The second thing is that when you search for videos using keywords, you only bring up the first 5 returns on whatever you've searched with. So if you use really broad terms, you could actually, there could be heaps of footage, but you only get the first 5 hits. So you want to try and narrow down your search as much as possible to have really specific words and terms that you search for. When you find the videos that use these terms, you'll typically, when you start playing the video, it'll start playing from when that term is mentioned in the video. And from that point, you can scrub backwards and rewind and watch more. But that kind of adds to the challenge. The other big difference between this and her story is that because you're actually seeing interactions of different characters in different environments, you'll often see one side of a conversation from one character's point of view, like particularly if they're on a phone or something like that. And then in a later video, you'll actually hear the other side of the conversation from the person on the other end, who you might not have actually realized at the time was them. So... and you're mentally trying to put these things together in reverse and realize that you've heard the other side of this conversation and what was said at what time versus this, that, and the other. And man, it's a really fucking cool puzzle game. Like I love it. And the thing that you're learning about these 4 characters and how their lives intersect is the core part of the kind of story as it unravels. And something's obviously happened that you're investigating, and there is like a plot to it that reveals itself as the game progresses, but it's not obvious up front. And I haven't finished it yet, so there's still heaps that I need to uncover. I've got like a notepad that I keep with me when I play this game that is just filled with fucking scribble. Like I've just got
I love that.
Keywords all over the place. It's like when we were playing Cultist Simulator. It's like just conspiracy theories upon conspiracy theories. They actually give you a notepad in the game to keep track of stuff, but this is probably one of my big complaints about the game. The UI for watching the videos is really clunky because if you actually try and you can't access the notepad at the same time you're playing videos because they actually pop out to full screen. And if you try and switch to go to the notepad and make a note, and there's like a bookmarking system in there as well. When you go back to the video, it actually starts at the beginning again, as opposed to the point at which you paused it at, which is a bit annoying. But in a way, it's kind of in theme because you're almost sort of fighting against this archaic NSA sort of system of having this footage available to you. So if they're trying to recapture that, I think they maybe did a good job. But notepad and pen is by far the better way to go. But yeah, I would highly recommend this game if you like this kind of thing. Like if you like piecing a story together, like, chunk by chunk and don't necessarily want it just spoon-fed to you. It's almost like playing a movie, but a movie that is chopped up and like messed up on the floor and you have to put it back together basically to get, what's going on with it. And by the time I finish the game, guaranteed if you guys play this game, like my experience will be different to yours. Like there is no doubt. The chances of us picking the same threads to investigate and the same keywords and the same sequence, it just wouldn't happen. And I'm sure that there'll be a bunch of footage by the end of the game that I haven't actually seen yet because I haven't even thought to search for particular terms. So yeah, but that's telling lies. So man, it's fascinating. It's definitely one of the coolest games I've played this year. So
I really want to play it. I've got enough on my plate though.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, well, that's a whole bunch of recent gaming. Let's pivot into some news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
Christian, we got some breaking news.
Yes, we have some pretty fascinating breaking news, hot off the presses, and that is that Telltale Games appears to be doing a bit of a THQ and is coming back from the dead in some new zombie-like form.
What?
Just hot off the presses. So it's being acquired by a group known as LCG Entertainment, headed up by Jamie Ottilli and Brian Waddle. So they've acquired some of the licenses and the back catalogue from Telltale Games. They've confirmed in an interview with Polygon that they're going to be selling some of that back catalogue and they will be developing new games. They are offering some of the original employees freelance roles to begin with the option of turning into full-time positions, pending in the future, which is pretty cool. It's not the whole package of Telltale Games as far as IPs go. So they've confirmed they have like Wolf Among Us and Batman, but they definitely don't have The Walking Dead anymore, and they don't have Stranger Things.
Yeah, they did wrap up Walking Dead at least anyway, so that's finished. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of unknowns. Like they haven't said what the deal is with like Game of Thrones or Guardians of the Galaxy or Minecraft, a few others. Yeah.
But so it seems to be a bit of a mix of they've got some of it and some of it they don't. There's just some pretty interesting statements from Ottilli about like his new approach with Telltale and why he thinks the original one failed. He cites like market conditions and issues of scale, which is definitely stuff that was in the conversation at the time of their demise. So he seems to have a good understanding of that. What went down there. And then another interesting thing from the interview was that he said that they're going to keep the episodic model that Telltale was so known for, but they are going to look at ways of evolving it. And in particular, he says that he likes the idea of binge watching, which is interesting when you think of like if you're binge watching 5 episodes of a Telltale game, is it really episodic then, or is that just one game cut into 5 pieces? Like,
depends on how they structure it, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, so like, what do you guys think about Telltale coming back?
I think the big thing for me is like a lot of the Telltale magic that they captured was the team that created those games. So is this Telltale coming back or Telltale's IP coming?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there will be some original employees that are offered positions back, and I don't know, like, I don't know how much of it was magic from the original team. Like, I feel like the writing in the later games wasn't that great, and I don't know.
Yeah. Early Walking Dead, absolutely. Like that stuff where they were really peaking and exploding. I think that was that Telltale magic you're talking about, where they were taking chances and really sort of experimenting with some heavy themes in their games that, later on were very much diluted just for the sake of, cranking out content and getting as many licenses as possible. So, yeah.
I think that it's a little bit unfair to the quality of the games they were turning out. They had their problems, but
I'm not saying they're bad quality. I'm just saying that comparatively, I didn't think they met the same level. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's also well documented in terms of like the Telltale devs talking about their issues internally and why their games weren't more Walking Deads was because the fact that, especially like the thing that would disappoint me is if their leadership came, because it was their leadership that sunk Telltale in the end because of the fact they couldn't let go of those early successes and were trying to recapture it by making the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
I very, very much doubt that any of the leadership will be coming back. The new heads seem to they seem to understand. I doubt they would have made this investment if they didn't have a good understanding of what went wrong and a better approach in future. So I don't think we'll see the same issues repeated again.
Yeah,
because the issues that Telltale had are very well documented in terms of like the developers' opinions upon what actually went wrong. Because there's a whole, and the reason I say Telltale magic is because that development team were very keen on experimenting, but got held back by their leadership. So having that development team come back without the leadership, yes, I would totally say that's Telltale.
Yeah. In terms of the individual sort of IPs though, like, I mean, Walking Dead is finished. I think that, that not coming back makes total sense. Game of Thrones was, I'm sorry, as far as the lineup of Telltale games goes, the Game of Thrones game was trash. I did not think it was their best at all. And Game of Thrones, I think, is largely done in terms of, the public kind of, appetite at the moment because the TV series sort of wrapping up and God knows when the next book is actually going to hit. So, yeah, I don't think people are super sort of fired up for that anymore. But, Batman, I think, still got some legs. They've done some really interesting things with the Batman franchise, and they took some big chances with where they took certain characters for that. So I think that would be really cool to see what they continue to do with. Wolf Among Us, man, I've been crying out for a sequel to that game forever because that was one of their best. That was
They announced a sequel to it, but it never got through the pipe.
Exactly, like that got caught up in the casualties of that big sort of falling apart that occurred. But apart from that, like Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think really sort of took off. The only other one that I would love to see them go back to the well for would be Tales from the Borderlands, because having another crack at that, especially with the big surge of Borderlands fandom that's going to be happening very soon with the release of Borderlands 3. By the time they actually get around to getting back into that space again, I'm sure that time has passed where it's not that sort of storm in what's the expression? Catching lightning in a bottle. Yeah, it's not that kind of anymore. It would have been a bit late for that, but I think there's definitely appetite to go back and do more of that content. But the episodic thing is fascinating. I kind of think there's a lot of sense to that because at the end of the day, yes, it does sound like why wouldn't they just release the thing as a full game? But when you think about the reasons why people enjoy watching like entire like Netflix series in a binge format, as opposed to, watching massive movies, it's because of that segmentation. It actually allows you to decide where you want to split it and kind of pause. I think that's actually a really good thing. Like having something in bite-sized parcels that makes sense, as opposed to feeling like you're pausing midway through a movie, I think is actually a good thing. So I'm all about that. I think that's a great idea. I would I'd feel very comfortable with that if it was done properly. So
the quote there about the episodic model, just quickly, is he says, "We will probably keep the concept of episodes, but with different pacing. This is a different world from a media consumption standpoint. We need to look at how people like to entertain themselves."
Yeah.
I like the idea of binge watching, is what he says. So,
and the fact is, at the moment, the biggest problem with episodic content, and I think we've really seen this with Life is Strange in particular. Like season 2 of Life is Strange is a classic example of this, where the major complaint with people who play episodic games is that the time between episodes is either massively inconsistent or way too long. And Life is Strange 2 is a game that I think by the time they release the final episode of that, it will have been released over the course of nearly 2 years, and that's way too long for a game like that. So, yeah.
I would argue that Detroit Become Human is episodic because, like, you can choose to play through it, and it's a nicely, like, contained little parcel of an episode that you're playing for one character or for several characters, and then you get to choose the point at which you're stopping it and putting it down. And I think that's what he's kind of saying.
Totally.
Like, you can binge it. Like, you can binge. Like, if Telltale Games released their game and you got all chapters at once, you could go all the way through to the finish, or you could finish to episode 3 and basically say, all right, that's not too much of a cliffhanger that I'm going to be like itching play the next chapter right away.
Yeah, I agree.
That gives you kind of freedom to choose where you stop. And I think that's a really smart move to the development end.
So, Jetha, did you ever mess much with the Telltale games? Did you play any of those?
I really only played the first season of The Walking Dead.
Mm.
Yeah.
You win a large percentage of their player base, apparently, based on statistics.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was very good. And I think, actually, I'm a terrible friend. Some years before, Matt actually bought me season 2 of The Walking Dead, and then I didn't play it. I don't think I've ever watched it.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think they did some really, really interesting stuff. But I think there can be too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of. I mean, I don't know what was going on in their studio, but it seemed like they just sort of commodified themselves.
Mm.
Like, you know, there was a time not that long ago when we were like almost like you had like a think piece or some shit coming out about every episode in that season 1. And then just there's suddenly too much of it to go deep on it, and it becomes less special. And then you end up giving less of a shit about it, and then it just stops, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Oh, that'll be a very interesting one to watch. Not news I expected to hear this week, that's for freaking sure.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, another interesting thing that's been bubbling away this week. I'm going to sort of switch into something a little bit more local now. So in Australia, there have been 6 people arrested for alleged Counter-Strike global offensive match fixing. So this is awesome. So Australia's Victorian police have actually made multiple arrests. Now, this is all alleged at this point. I should clarify that. The due process in the legal sense hasn't actually happened yet. But, they're obviously pretty, confident if they're making arrests of this nature. So there's been a CSGO match fixing scheme alleged, essentially. And it says that the cops were tipped off by a company that actually was taking some of the bets involved in this. And all up, there was about 20 suspect wagers that they uncovered, and that led to the arrest of 6 people. And what they'd apparently been doing, allegedly, is they had been arranging to throw matches, and then they had bet on those matches themselves. So, pretty classic match fixing kind of scenario. So, and they reckon that at least 5 league matches at a high level were impacted, and the investigation's still ongoing. So this might not actually be the extent of all the arrests that they make. But this content that I've been reading on this has been fascinating from a precedent perspective in Australia, because it gives a real insight into, how big gambling has become, and how this now entering into the esports market is very new territory for, legal authorities. But this is kind of like a landmark example where, this is the first arrest of this nature that has taken place, and a very high profile one as well. So the guys arrested range in age. They're pretty young. They're between 19 and 22 years old, and they obviously haven't named any of them. But the agency that actually cooperated with the police to sort of lead to the arrest was Sportsbet, which is a pretty big sort of betting agency in Australia, and they have like an online portal that caters for gambling on esports. But I learnt in this that there was actually like some data that was published in 2018 that sort of talks to the average amounts of betting that Australians make on these sorts of things annually. And it's, this is like a year and a half worth of data old, potentially, or maybe a year old, depending on exactly when they took it. So they reckon that adult Australians wager on average about $11,000 each annually. So, and if you were to adjust that to US dollars, that's about $7,500 per person per year. Which
that's got to be like heavily skewed by like
some big whales. Yeah, I agree, because that sounds nuts to me. That sounds absolutely crazy. Like, I know we have like a betting culture around certain times of year, like the Melbourne Cup and things like that, where there's big spikes. But those numbers seem huge to me. So, but the interesting thing is you can actually turn that around and calculate the amount of losses that potentially generates that sort of gets eaten up by that industry. And they reckon that, and due to these figures, Australians actually lose more money than gamblers anywhere else in the world, and that's about 23 and a bit billion dollars in losses per year, and that would be the equivalent of about $850 for each of those Australian adults in US dollars. So that's crazy. Like you think about the preponderance of gambling, around the world. I had no idea that it was that systemic in Australia. I really didn't.
Pokie machines probably play a big part in that too in other states.
True. Yeah. But man, that's a really interesting insight. And starting to look at that being a key part of esports. Yeah, I'm kind of glad they're on top of this, because that could be something that people could get away with some real shit for a while if they're not following it closely. But it seems like they're onto it. So there you go, CS:GO.
What is it with CS:GO people? Like there was a couple of years back, there was a big hubbub about some CS:GO YouTubers who got done for promoting a loot box gambling site that they themselves owned, and that they were like rigging the odds when they were like opening the boxes on stream.
Yeah.
And yeah, so CS:GO people, man, you gotta watch out for them.
That's it.
Yeah.
Shifty mofos. That's it. Yeah.
So last piece of news for tonight. In classic fashion, World of Warcraft has been released.
Wow, Matt. Wow.
Nice.
And it's gone to shit. History is repeating itself. It's glorious. There's queues of hours to get onto server. One of my friends had showed me a screenshot of his queue to actually log in, and he was like the 30,000 person in.
Jesus.
I was waiting for 3.5 hours to get on the server. And then when people are getting into servers, if you're playing some races that are more popular than other races, your area will lag the hell out, because it spawns more monsters to account for how many people are in a zone. Where it doesn't spawn more monsters for people in a zone, it'll be like rare mobs, but they're quest mobs. And so people are literally forming lines to be able to take out quest mob and taking it one at a time. Like, okay, you get to kill it now because it just spawned, and then the rest of us will wait 5 minutes. And then the next person moves up and kills it again when it respawns. It is a shit show. It is so bad.
Although kind of amazing that people are actually being organised like that, though. Like that reminds me of the launch of the original Division, where a similar thing happened with some of the computer terminals that you needed to access. There were people forming lines. So, yeah,
it literally does feel like history is repeating itself. Like, so much about this incredibly familiar to like. I played World of Warcraft on day one when it first released. I should say, I played World of Warcraft on day one when it first released, as in I booted the game and I sat in a queue and then eventually gave and had to wait for like 2 weeks before I could actually play the game. And that seems to be the experience that a lot of people are having with this right now. It's true to classic World of Warcraft. This is what you asked for, you fucking idiot.
Yeah. I've got a whole bunch of people at work at the games company that I'm at that literally took time off work to play classic WoW on launch day, and I was sitting there shaking my head thinking, yeah, this is not going to work out how you think it's going to work out.
One of my friends literally took a day off work and then was basically saying that he took the day off to play World of Warcraft but spent most of it playing Fire Emblem.
Yep.
Because he was just sitting there at his computer waiting to actually log in, but he was on his Switch the whole time.
Yep, absolutely.
It's ridiculous. They have to have accounted for how many people are going to be logging into this, right? Or do they just, like, again, underestimate how many? This is just a Blizzard problem in general.
It's an interesting conversation, though, because I almost feel like in this case, they're kind of assuming that they get a free pass by deliberately not addressing some of these problems that was almost obvious were going to come up, because that is the classic experience. So if they overcorrect too much, then they're kind of denying players what they've asked for this whole time. And it's kind of this, it's this insidious kind of intentional punishment, because they kind of want to make a point at the same time.
The funny thing is that a hashtag is broken out on Twitter. I say that like some sort of disease, and it's accurate. But So there's a whole bunch of people that are pissed off because the way that it scales the number of mobs in a zone is not a classic WoW thing. And so they're annoyed because it's not the true classic WoW experience for that reason. Not because they have to wait in queues, but because it's spawning more monsters to deal with the number of people in a zone.
I think it's glorious. It's a glorious mess.
Yeah.
It is definitely a glorious. Yes, I will agree with that.
So amongst us, I mean, I don't have any sort of desire to, capture this. It's not nostalgia for me because I didn't play on launch either. But Matt, have you thought about going back in just to sample it, or?
God, no. God, no. Like, I have already wasted 6 years of my life in World of Warcraft. I don't need to waste any more.
Yeah. And what about you, Jetha? You tempted to go back in and just eat yourself into oblivion and recapture some of those times of lost years?
I mean, I'll admit that I didn't really get far in WoW back when it was a thing. Like, I think I only got about as far as, like, 40.
Yeah.
I bounced off of it, kind of.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when all my friends were getting in, like, that was a time when I was getting really into Halo 2. And, like, you just don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, like, for me, the whole thing that makes me have fond memories of WoW is not the gameplay. It's the people I played it with, and there's no recapturing that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think, they're probably, there's going to be some pockets of people who manage to recapture that and kind of like the stuff we were talking about a few weeks ago where they've got those, find your old WoW friends forum sort of system set up. So I'm very curious how successful those have ended up being, actually.
It's just really funny. Like, I've got a group of friends that they will constantly hound me to play the game that they're all recently hopping onto. And not that long ago, they were hounding me to get back into Ark. And I was like, no, I'm just not feeling it at the moment. And then a whole bunch of them have dumped it and have been harassing me to get back into WoW Classic. And I'm just like, I give you 2 months. 2 months, and then you'll be bouncing off to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more things out these days to divide people's attention than there ever was around that era. So, yeah.
And like, quite frankly, World of Warcraft Classic, World of Warcraft, the original World of Warcraft, was not a particularly great game. It was great for its time, but now not so much.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are going to get back in there and play it and realize most of their fond memories of nostalgia. So
Yep, absolutely. Well, speaking of splitting attention, Matt, I know that you and I in particular have got another game sitting in our hot pockets that we're kind of keen to fire up. So you going to hit that tonight? Is that going to be anything?
I have put... so the game that Luke is referencing, audience, is Control. Yep. So I picked that up. I've put in like 2 or 3 hours so far.
Nice.
Holy fuck. It is super cool. It is like... A lot of people are making comparisons to the SCP Foundation, which if you've never heard of it, you should go look up the wiki and read some stuff. It's great. But I think it's almost unfair because this game is way more weird.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into that, and I think it's the kind of game that like having some people to bounce the conversation off is going to be really helpful. So yeah,
the way they deliver narrative is super interesting. I will say that much. I'm really keen on hearing how like. I'm 3 hours into the game and I already have conspiracy theories, and I think that's exactly what they were going for.
Yeah, perfect. All right, well, that's something to look ahead to next week for everyone listening. So, Jetha and Christian, what have you guys got on your plate to dive into next, sort of post Fire Emblem?
I mean, I'm doing a Blue Lions playthrough right now.
Nice.
Like I played through Crimson Flower, and then
Dedue is the best. Make sure you treat Dedue properly.
I mean, Dedue's good. Dedue's good, but I mean, Edelgard is best girl, and Hubert is the purest of boys. It's no. I think I'm just gonna keep playing. I mean, like Destiny 2 Shadowkeep is coming out. Of course, I would be remiss if I wasn't gonna mention that.
Hell yeah!
And like, Matt and a bunch of my other Destiny 2 friends are like, let's play it. And I don't know, but I've recently sort of hit upon this realization that I was sinking all of this time and effort into these like menial, repetitive tasks, and then like, I mean, my hunter doesn't jump. Like, my hunter doesn't get in better shape because I do all this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm just like, if you are what you eat, like, I'm a fucking like potato. So, hitting the gym, Fire Emblem. I think that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Nice. Christian,
I will add.
Yeah.
Sorry, just on the Fire Emblem front, I'm apparently the only person here that's playing Golden Gear. So.
No, Matt, John is playing for Golden Deer, and he's all like, "You should play it," but honestly, like, nah.
I think they're fun, but like I went into this basically being like, I'm gonna choose the clear underdogs.
the name alone sounds like the Hufflepuff of the situation.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
But I think the part of the beauty is that everyone falls in love with the path that they choose, and I think the game does a good job of convincing you that you chose the right house. Like you end up like loving it no matter what. I think.
Yeah. You like the characters are so rich, and like I think every time it's hard to regret your choice.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But coming up for me is going to be all about Astral Chain. So that's coming out in two days.
Jesus.
So get it.
What is going on this week? Everything's happening again. Holy crap.
I'll put a lot of time into Astral Chain, and I'll report back next week.
Yeah, nice. All right, well, we're going to have some good discussions about some new games next week to look forward to. But in the meantime, you can hit us up at all the usual places if you want to send us some feedback on this episode. So mail@partyloaded.com. You can check us out on Twitter @partyloadedshow. On Facebook, just look for Party Loaded. And of course, all the links to our other stuff, our YouTube, our Twitch, etc., etc. The main hub at channelendgame.com is where you'll find links to all of that. So, Jetha, thank you very much for coming and hanging with us tonight. It's been awesome having you on. Yeah.
My pleasure. Like, it was great getting to meet you guys and see where Matt spends all of his time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're about to spend a whole bunch more of that time sort of playing the stuff in the lead up to our next discussion round, so that's going to be good. So, yeah, absolutely. But if people kind of want to get in touch with you or have any questions about games development from your Japanese experience, where could they find you, Jetha?
Yeah, you can find me at Jetha. That's a Jetha on Twitter. And that's probably the best place for that, unless you, for some reason, want to connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. Nice. Who
uses LinkedIn?
Only people who actually want jobs. I don't know. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, awesome. That's great. So, thank you very much for jumping on. And thanks, guys, for another great episode. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll be back again with tales of new games in 7 days' time. But until then, thanks for listening and good night.
Good night.
Later, gang.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.